I can pinpoint just 2 moments in my life when my body made a decision before my head did. When my gut tried to scream for me to hear it, to listen to it, to make a move so bold my mind couldn't fathom it. These weren't impulsive decisions to make, but moments of deep internal reckoning, when something inside me knew the truth before I could even articulate it. I wrestled with those feelings, trying to rationalize what could call me to upend my life and my future plans. And then I gave in, decided to follow my gut, stepping outside of my comfort zone. Those 2 moments for me were when I chose to move to Israel to pursue the rabbinate, and when I decided to move to Cincinnati instead of Los Angeles to continue my studies. Some of you have heard the second story, how I met my now husband in our first year of study at HUC in Jerusalem, and suddenly LA no longer felt like the right choice for me. Cincinnati, a city I had never visited or even considered being from the Northeast, became the only choice. And now, 7 years later, Cincinnati has yet to disappoint. Like many of my colleagues, I am so grateful that the Hebrew Union College brought me here. I couldn't imagine studying anywhere else. Rewinding just 2 years before that move, I was living in Boston, surrounded by great friends, working a meaningful job as a Jewish professional, and enjoying my early 20s. Life was good, and I had no doubt that I'd be there for years to come. But something started to shift. As I became more deeply involved in the Jewish professional network, observing the leadership of both clergy and institutional leaders, I felt a stirring inside of me. The more time that I spent in synagogue life, engaging with rabbis and rabbinical students, teaching religious school, the more I yearned for something deeper in my life. I wanted more Jewish learning, more conversations about making decisions rooted in Jewish values, more moments of bringing joy to Jewish children and young adults. I wanted to grow, not just professionally, but spiritually. And I wanted to know how to lead as a Jew first, to learn how to create and participate in organizational life that reflects the heart of our tradition, with compassion, justice, humility, and joy. And I noticed how desperately our community needed that kind of leadership. So my gut told me, as happy as I was in Boston, that it was time to take a leap of faith, to pursue an education and a career that I hadn't planned on, one that would require leaving my small New England bubble and moving across the world. Again, I'm so glad I did. Many of us have these gut feelings when something inside us says, change course. These moments can be terrifying, exhilarating, and transformative. Sometimes these opportunities present themselves when we least expect it. Sometimes we follow our intuition. Sometimes something falls into our lap. And sometimes someone else invites us to take a risk with them. I like to think of these moments in life as divine calls, when God extends an invitation for us to grow, and it's up to us whether we accept it. We know about that divine call from Abraham. Tomorrow morning, we again read the famous story of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. We read from the first verse of this scene, Veha Elohim nisa et Avraham, Vayomer elav Avraham, Vayomer hineni. God put Abraham to the test, saying to him, Abraham. And he answered, Hineni, here I am. God tests Abraham by asking him to offer his beloved son Isaac as a sacrifice, the son who was meant to be his heir, the fulfillment of God's promise. Abraham prepares to do it, and just before he does, a messenger of God calls out to stop him. Abraham, at this point, has proven his devotion to God, and in turn, God promises to bless Abraham and all his descendants. Abraham names the site of the altar Adonai Yireh. On the Mount of Adonai, there is vision. This story is one of the most dramatic and difficult in the Torah because it's a story of fear, of faith, and ultimate transformation. And it's a story of answering that divine call. Ramban, a medieval commentator, writes that tests like Abraham's are actually trials on matters of free will. He says, since a person's deeds are at their absolute free command, to perform them or not to perform them at their will, on the part of the one who is tried, it's called a trial. But on the part of the Holy One, who tries the person, it is a command that the one being tested should bring forth the matter from the potential into actuality, so that they may be rewarded for the deed, not for thought alone. In other words, God's test isn't about seeing what Abraham thinks. It's about seeing what he does in that moment, and if he can turn potential into reality, to see if Abraham will take that leap. Ramban takes the word presented here, nisa, not only at its face value, meaning to test, but to try. Noting that Abraham himself is invited to try something challenging, scary, and extremely courageous. Deciding whether to take the step is a matter of free will. Ramban explains that, like Abraham, we find the greatest reward not just in contemplating an action, but in having the courage to take a leap of faith. God isn't testing Abraham's piety. Instead, God is giving him a sign, inviting him to try something difficult, something transformative. Now, I know this is an extreme version of hearing the divine call, and maybe that's intentional. Perhaps the Torah wants us to confront the most unimaginable test of sacrifice, enabling us to envision ourselves undertaking significant, bold, and intimidating challenges that truly test us, force us to grow, and hopefully lift us up as well. After all, the opportunities that involve sacrifice often do draw us nearer to what's most important in our lives. On a podcast with Mayim Bialik, well known for her role on The Big Bang Theory and in our community as a proud practicing Jew, Rabbi Steve Leader of Wilshire Boulevard Temple Bar speaks about our misunderstanding of this word sacrifice. He says, we have a problematic understanding of what sacrifice means. Most people think of sacrifice as a net loss. He made the ultimate sacrifice. It was such a terrible sacrifice. But the Hebrew word for sacrifice is korban, which comes from the root karev, to draw close, to draw near. Rabbi Leader asks Bialik, what are the things you've sacrificed most for in your life? And she answers, my children and my religion. Then he asks, what are the two things you feel closest to and mean the most to you? Her answer, my children and my connection to God. It's the things that we sacrificed most that bring us the most meaning and connection. Sacrifice is not a loss, but a pathway to closeness. When we take risks and make sacrifices, foregoing comfort, certainty, or control, we draw nearer to our deepest values, to our dreams, and to God. Abraham names the place where he nearly sacrifices his son, Adonai Yireh, Adonai will see. It is a place of vision, a place where God is seen, where possibility is born. When we take a risk, we don't know what will happen. Our tradition, though, teaches us that when these opportunities present themselves, we should not be paralyzed by fear. Instead, we should have faith. If things don't go according to plan, we need to have the fortitude to figure it out, because our lives ought to be driven by vision and the dream of what could be. Abraham reminds us that when we answer the call, God will be seen. We are not alone when we're accompanied by the divine, and we may just experience the greatness that we envision. In the new year, we're invited to open ourselves up to the possibility of hearing and seeing opportunities that challenge us as divine calls. These modern divine calls may not come with burning bushes or booming voices, arriving with drama and precision. They might come instead as a whisper, not a thunderclap, presenting as quiet nudges, persistent thoughts, or moments of clarity in our guts that feel sacred. We may find sparks of divine encouragement through conversations with friends, a child's question, or a moment of silence and prayer. We experience these calls in deeply personal and varied ways. Sometimes it's a career shift, like a corporate executive who leaves behind financial security to become a nonprofit professional, feeling called to make an impact that feels deeper. Divine calls manifest through acts of courage, when a person who themselves has endured injustice finds the strength to share their story publicly, helping others heal in the process. And often these calls lead to healing and connection, as seen in the aftermath of a natural disaster, when someone organizes relief efforts, feeling compelled to themselves be a source of hope. We won't hear a voice from heaven, and so these moments may not feel divine at first, but when we take action and these decisions align with our deepest values, they bring us closer to others, to purpose, and to God. And so they are holy moments. Much more than I could have felt in my own moments of choosing whether or not to lean into risk, Abraham faces the call head on. And we all hear that call sometimes from our gut, sometimes from the whisper of divine inspiration, sometimes from a friend or a family member who invites us to do something bold. We all have the opportunity to heed that call, to lean in even when it's scary, to take a risk, to potentially sacrifice everything. And we ought to take that step, because taking that step lifts us up spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. It challenges us, helping us in our pursuit to become stronger and better people. Accepting the divine invitation to do something new and daring draws us nearer to others and nearer to making meaning of our lives. This is what the new year is about.